What if I told you that the entire universe might be whispering something, and that this whisper began at the very moment God spoke the first words? Since childhood, you've heard about "let there be light." This phrase is echoed through the centuries, repeated from pulpits, books, and songs. But have you ever wondered what came before it? What unfathomable silence filled the void? And, even more disturbing, could that sound, that divine command that shaped existence, still vibrate right now around you? Perhaps you've never stopped to think about this, because traditional religion teaches us to look only at the text and not at the gaps between the lines. However, it is precisely in these gaps that the mysteries of creation are hidden. What you're about to discover may surprise you, and perhaps even change the way you see the world forever. Imagine for a moment that the primordial sound wasn't just a distant event lost in time. Imagine that it continues to resonate, sustaining everything that exists, every star, every breath, every beat of your heart. Modern science has proven that sound is vibration, and the Bible, in its sacred language, affirms that everything was created by the Word. Coincidence? Or evidence that the very fabric of the universe is weaving, to this day, the original melody of Genesis? Stay with me until the end, because we'll cross boundaries few have dared to cross. We'll discuss forgotten texts, hidden for centuries, that mention an eternal echo hovering over creation. We'll explore hidden symbols, forbidden words, and theories that unite physics, theology, and mystery. Have you ever experienced this? Feeling like there's something bigger, invisible, almost palpable, surrounding you, but that no one can explain? What if that something is the very sound of creation, a call that comes from before time began? We're not just talking about an ancient myth or a poetic verse. We're talking about a cosmic code, a divine frequency that may be shaping everything, right now. A truth that, according to some, was hidden so that only the chosen could perceive it. And this is where our journey begins, when we open our ears to the impossible and try to grasp that which cannot be heard, but only felt. Because if the echo of Genesis still vibrates, it is not just a sound. It is a secret. And as you begin to imagine this invisible sound, as if it were echoing through every particle around you, I want to make a sincere request to you, if this topic resonates with you. If you've ever felt this silent presence in some way, leave a comment below with what has touched you most so far. I read every message, and often it's from your words that new connections, new questions, and even future videos emerge. Your participation here is what keeps this flame burning. When you comment, like, and subscribe, it's not just a symbolic gesture. It's as if you're helping spread this search for answers, making this message reach more people who, like you, sense there's something hidden waiting to be revealed. And if you want to continue walking with me along these paths of mystery, where faith and enigma meet, sign up now. This is how we create a community of seekers, people who are unafraid to look beyond what has been said and hear what perhaps no one else is hearing. Because the more we grow together, the further that echo can travel, and the closer we get to understanding what it really wants to tell us. What, after all, is the echo of Genesis? Is it merely a beautiful metaphor, lost in the ancient pages, or a real, still active phenomenon, shaping reality in ways we can barely comprehend? This question isn't just about history or religion. It's about the very fabric of existence. Some ancient texts, carefully preserved away from the eyes of the naked eye, assert that this primordial sound is never dissipated, that somehow it spans the ages like a subtle vibration that sustains all that is and all that will be. Consider for a moment the power of a word, not just the meaning it carries, but the energy it releases when spoken. In creation, according to the biblical account, God didn't sculpt matter with his hands. He spoke. And this speech was no ordinary sound. It was a decree, a frequency so pure and absolute that it brought into being light, time, space, and everything we know. Now, if modern physics tells us that energy is not lost, but only transformed, doesn't that initial word continue to vibrate, altering forms, guiding destinies, and influencing decisions to this day? Imagine that every step of your journey, every personal transformation, every shift in mindset could somehow resonate with this original frequency, not as a force taking away your freedom, but as an invisible foundation, a backdrop that shapes the landscape in which your choices unfold. What the feeling many have, that there is something greater, silent, and constant, is actually a real echo, as old as the first star. Behind the scenes of Scripture, there are accounts that haven't reached pulpits or Sunday schools. Some speak of a sound suspended over the deep. Others describe a voice that never stopped speaking, even when unheard. These revelations, considered taboo for centuries, challenge the linear view that creation was a one-off, finished act. On the contrary, they suggest that we are living within an ongoing process, where the Word is still at work, recreating and reorganizing everything around us. Now, I want to delve even deeper into the subject, because if the echo of Genesis is real and continuous, it means that we were not only formed by it, but that we are constantly being shaped by this same energy. It's as if we were inside an endless song, where each note was composed at the beginning and continues to be played. The question is, can we hear it? Or rather, can we recognize when it touches us? Some mystics claim that the sound is perceived not by the ears, but by the spirit. It is an internal perception, a vibration that moves the soul more than the body. It can be a moment of profound peace, an inexplicable intuition, or even that sudden shiver that arises when we hear words that seem to remind us of something we've never experienced, but which somehow we know. Perhaps this is what we call a connection with the divine, a silent dialogue with the original frequency of creation. There are even those who say that certain words, when spoken, align our vibration with this frequency. This sacred language, lost and only recovered by scholars and seekers, has the power to attune our existence to the primordial sound. It's as if each syllable carries a fragment of this energy and, when spoken, reconnects us with the beginning of everything. It's no wonder that, in so many cultures, sound is seen as an instrument of healing, transformation, and revelation. Perhaps the greatest impact of understanding this mystery is realizing that creation is not distant, in an untouchable past, but alive, pulsating and interacting with every present moment. And this invites us to a powerful reflection. If the echo still vibrates, then every word we speak also reverberates in the fabric of the universe, creating waves that can influence realities. Comment here. I'm on this journey too. In the Genesis account, the scene unfolds on a profound void, described as darkness upon the face of the deep and a spirit hovering over the waters. It is in this absolute silence that something unprecedented happens. A sound shatters the still eternity. Let there be light. 3 words that not only began the day, but inaugurated the entire concept of existence. And, according to the sacred text, light arose. This is a point that often goes unnoticed. The Bible does not describe a physical act, but a sonic act. The word was not only the announcement of light, but the very instrument that formed it. When we think about this more deeply, we realize that we're not talking about poetry, but a mechanism of creation. Speech wasn't a compliment, but the central action. And this perspective completely changes the way we view the biblical narrative. It invites us to reflect on the role of words and sound at the very foundation of reality. This is a hidden truth that is rarely explored. If the world began with a voice, perhaps the entire universe is, in essence, music frozen in the form of matter. Throughout history, spiritual leaders, prophets, and mystics have interpreted this moment as the revelation of an eternal principle, the idea that everything is sustained by the same energy that gave rise to it. If light came from a sound, and if that sound still reverberates, then the world we see is merely the surface of a much deeper melody. This has an immense impact on our mindset. It's not just about a distant beginning, but about an ongoing process. It's as if creation is happening right now, as you hear these words. The most fascinating thing is that, as we revisit Genesis without rushing, we realize that it doesn't describe random chaos, but a precise sequence of commands. Let there be light was just the first. Then came orders to separate, to gather, to bring forth. Each creative act was preceded by a verb, and this reveals something important. Divine decision is expressed through speech, and speech manifests a decision. There is no action without a declaration. Now, I want to delve even deeper into the subject, because if we understand that the creative word is not an isolated event, but a repeating pattern, then we can begin to identify its echoes not only in the scriptures, but also in the small transformations that mark our own journey. Every decision we make, every revelation we receive, can be seen as a miniature of this original act, a distant but real reflection of the first "let there be." There's also something powerful in the claim that light was the first creation. Before any physical form, before any structure, came clarity. Not just visible light, but perhaps a kind of primordial consciousness, capable of piercing the void and revealing what was hidden. This leads us to question whether our very perception of the world, the way we see life, interpret signs, and seek meaning, is not, in some way, a legacy of this first illumination. And when we consider this in the perspective of the biblical stories behind-the-scenes perspective, we realize there are layers that have not been revealed in common sermons. Ancient texts outside the traditional canon suggest that "Let there be light" was not just a physical act, but an opening of portals, an awakening of forces that had been dormant. These interpretations speak of a movement of energy that is not limited to our plane of existence, but traverses dimensions, connecting the beginning of all things to present. The impact of this is enormous. It means that the echo of Genesis is not trapped in the pages of a book, but pulses in the rhythm of time, in the sound of the wind, in the murmur of the water, in the beating of your heart. It's as if the universe has been, from beginning, repeating the same song, waiting for someone to heed its refrain. And perhaps this is precisely what awakens in us the sense that there is more, much more, beyond what we can see or measure. Comment. This makes sense to me. Before the first word was spoken, there was silence. Not the silence we know, made of pauses between sounds or the emptiness of a dark room. It was an absolute, dense, almost palpable silence. A silence that didn't signify absence, but rather waiting. As if all of creation were contained, compressed into an instant, waiting for the exact moment to spill forth. This interval before the word is one of the most mysterious aspects of the creation narrative and, curiously, is little explored. Apocryphal texts and some mystical traditions of Judaism describe this moment very differently from what we hear in the more well-known accounts. In some of these sources, silence is portrayed as a sacred space, a cosmic womb, where divine intention was formed. There was no light, no shadow, no time, only pure, formless presence, carrying within itself the power of all things that would one day exist. Ancient writings speak of this silence as a kind of unspoken language, an inner dialogue between God and himself, a moment when a decision to create has been made, but not yet manifested. This brings us to a fascinating point. If even God, according to these interpretations, waited before acting, is silence an essential part of any act of creation? And if so, perhaps there's a sacred pattern that repeats itself in our own journey, that moment of deep introspection before we make decisions that change everything. Consider the impact this idea has on our mindset. In a world where we're pressured to act quickly, to respond immediately, perhaps there's a hidden value in pausing, in allowing silence to mature action. It's in this space that clarity is born, that intention is strengthened. Perhaps this is precisely what the silence before "Let there be light" represents. The gestation creation, the moment when eternity holds its breath before releasing something that will change everything. Kabbalistic traditions even describe this pre-moment as the Ein Sof, the infinity without manifestation, where all possibility already exists but has not yet spilled into the physical world. It's as if the universe were a blank canvas, still unpainted, but already charged with potential. And, in a way, this completely transforms the way we view the beginning of all things, not as a mere starting point, but as a result of profound preparation. Now I want to delve even deeper into the subject, because if we understand that silence is more than absence, but rather a space of invisible construction, we can begin to realize that it is present in all the transformational processes of our lives. It is the backdrop to every revelation, the interval where the hidden truth organizes itself before revealing itself. Perhaps, deep down, each moment of stillness is a small recreation of that instant before Genesis. Some say that in this primordial silence, there was not only anticipation, but also music. Not the kind we know, made of notes and chords, but harmony so pure it needed no sound to exist. An internal symphony, which would only become audible when the first word was spoken. This leads us to wonder. Could this be why some moments of profound peace give us the feeling of being at home, as if recognizing a place we've never seen? If this silence was, in fact, the essence of God before the manifestation, then perhaps we can still feel it, even today, when we disconnect from the noise and haste. Isn't this what many call true prayer? Not spoken words, but the full awareness of what is yet to come. Comment here. I feel this silence. If the silence before the word was the space of gestation, let there be was the moment when everything expanded irreversibly. And here comes a point that, when understood, completely changes our perception of creation. The primordial sound was not just a fleeting echo, a note that dissipated into the void. It was the beginning of an eternal frequency, a vibration that continues to sustain every atom, every star, every heartbeat, from the first instant until now. Think of it like a stone thrown into a still pond. Waves form and recede from the point of impact. But in the case of Genesis, these waves never stop. They continue to propagate, interact, and shape the very fabric of space and time. This is precisely where modern science, especially quantum physics, begins to engage with sacred texts. According to quantum mechanics, everything in the universe is essentially energy vibrating at different frequencies. Matter, light, sound, everything is a dance of vibrations. If we apply this logic to creative act, let there be light would not have been merely a verbal command, but the emission of a frequency so pure and powerful that it gave form to what was previously formless. This initial vibration, according to some scholars and mystics, has not ceased. It continues, continually sustaining and reorganizing reality. It is as if creation were not a single distant event, but a melody that is still being played. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because if this frequency is present in everything, then it's also present in us. What we call intuition, that sudden hunch or sense of connection to something greater, can actually be a momentary alignment with this original vibration. It's as if, for an instant, our own energy adjusts to the tone of the universe and allows us to sense the hidden truth behind appearances. The impact of this idea on our mentality is immense. It suggests that we are not merely living within a static universe, but participating in a continuous process of creation. Every thought, every decision, every word we speak creates ripples on the very surface where primordial sound still resonates. If this is true, then we are more than spectators. We are instruments of this eternal symphony. There are spiritual traditions that claim that certain sounds and mantras are capable of attuning humans to this frequency, not as a mystical trick, but as a natural harmonization, much like a guitar string vibrates when another string, tuned to the same note, is played. This resonance requires no physical effort, just presence and perception. Perhaps this is why certain ancient prayers or chants evoke such intense sensations. They not only communicate something, but also echo within us the original note of creation. Some mystical movements even describe this eternal vibration as the voice that never falls silent. No matter what happens in the physical world, it continues to sing. Perhaps this is why, in moments of profound silence, even without external noise, we feel a kind of internal sound, as if our bodies were in tune with something invisible. This perception is subtle, but those who experience it rarely forget it. If we consider the underlying logic of this theory, it's not just a philosophical curiosity. It redefines our relationship with the universe. If we are immersed in this frequency, then everything we do is embedded in a network of connections that spans time and space. This means our actions have a much greater reach than we imagine, because they vibrate in the same fabric that sustains galaxies and subatomic particles. And here lies the most transformative revelation. If this vibration sustains life, then learning to perceive it can radically change the way we live. It would no longer be about fighting the flow of things, but about finding the right tune, like a sailor learning to use the wind to their advantage. The echo of Genesis would not be just a distant memory, but a constant guide, present in every breath, reminding us that creation is still happening, and that we are part of it. Right there, I feel this vibration. If we look beyond the pages preserved in the official canons, we find curious and disturbing echoes of this primordial frequency. Forgotten texts, some deliberately banned, speak in surprising detail about something they call the voice of the waters or the sound that hovers over the deep. In the book of Enoch, for example, there are passages that describe a vibration that predates the very formation of the firmament. Enoch speaks of living waters that sing without ceasing and rivers of sound that traverse the sky and nourish the light. This is not just a poetic metaphor. It is a description that resonates with the idea of an eternal frequency that sustains all creation. In the apocryphal books attributed to Moses, there are lesser-known passages that mention a sounding wind that enveloped all matter before any defined form existed, a wind that not only moved the waters but seemed to organize chaos, as if it were a voice instructing matter to position itself. Here, once again, words and sound are not mere accessories. They are the very tools of transformation. Jewish mystical traditions, especially those of Kabbalah, describe something similar. They speak of a current of energy called kol mayim, literally, the voice of the waters, that flows from the beginning and traverses all worlds. This voice is not heard with the physical ears, but felt with the consciousness. Kabbalists claim that by meditating deeply on certain combinations of sacred letters, it is possible to perceive the echo of this sound, which would bring revelations and open the understanding to hidden truths. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because these ancient descriptions not only reinforce the idea of an eternal vibration, but also reveal a pattern. In all of them, sound is linked to water. It's as if water were the first instrument of creation, the element capable of recording and transmitting the original frequency. Modern science, curiously, confirms that water has a unique ability to store and conduct vibrations. Experiments show that water particles react to sound frequencies, altering their molecular structure. If this is true, imagine the impact of a divine frequency interacting with primordial waters. This connection between sound and water isn't limited to ancient descriptions. In occult traditions of the Middle East, we find accounts of priests who believe that by chanting certain words over the surface of the water, they could awaken ancestral memories engraved there since the beginning. It's as if each drop were a living archive, holding fragments of the first song of creation. This image is powerful because it transforms the ocean, rivers, and even the water we drink into a silent testament to the origin of everything. There are also Gnostic texts that claim that the sound that hovers over the abyss is actually the Creator's own heart beating in the rhythm of eternity. They describe how each beat of his heart spreads throughout the cosmos like a wave, and that all creatures, conscious or not, are immersed in this pulse. It's a concept that unites mysticism and science. The idea that everything is connected by a universal rhythm, a pulse that began in Genesis and has never ceased. These references, coming from such distinct cultures, eras, and traditions, point in the same direction. That creation was not a single distant act, but a living process, sustained by a cosmic melody that we can still sense if we learn to listen differently. Perhaps this is why, in moments of deep contemplation or meditation, some people report hearing a sound without origin, like a distant hum or chant, even in the most absolute silence. It could be imagination, or it could be the echo that has traversed millennia to reach us. Comment there, I hear this echo. Sound, from the beginning of time, has never been merely a physical vibration. In spiritual traditions, it has always carried a profound symbolic weight, often associated with divine power itself. In the context of creation, sound is more than the emission of words. It is a visible manifestation of the invisible, the bridge between intention and reality. It is like God's signature in the fabric of the universe. When we examine this idea closely, we realize that sound is, in fact, a code, and some believe that this original code is intimately linked to the sacred language, the language of creation, which is said to have been encapsulated in the Tetragrammaton, the four sacred letters that represent the name of God. The Tetragrammaton is not just a set of ancient consonants. Scholars and mystics consider a sound formula that, when pronounced correctly, reverberates at the same frequencies that gave rise to life. This is why, in many traditions, the divine name should not be spoken in vain, not out of superstition, but because each syllable carries a real impact, capable of altering the surrounding space and the inner state of the one who utters it. In the ancient mindset, pronouncing God's name was an act of creation in itself, as if it were possible for an instant to touch the same power that shapes stars and seas. Now I want to delve even deeper into the subject, because this symbolism of sound as a creative force is not exclusive to the Hebrew tradition. If we look behind the scenes of ancient cultures, we see that the concept recurs in different forms. In Egypt, for example, it was believed that Ptah created the world to the heart and tongue, thought and word united, transforming intention into matter. In India, the sound Om is considered the primordial vibration that gave rise to the universe, a direct equivalent to the biblical "let there be light." Among the Nordic peoples, magic itself was associated with the power to pronounce secret words and names. Rituals and chants, in virtually every civilization, have preserved this legacy that speech and music are not just artistic expressions, but tools for aligning human beings with the divine order. Gregorian chants, for example, still impress today not only for their melody, but for the almost hypnotic effect they produce, as if each note echoed in a space beyond time. In shamanism, the sound of drums is used to alter states of consciousness and open portals to other realities. This global pattern reinforces a hidden truth. Sound is a vehicle of power. When emitted with intention, it not only communicates but transforms. This changes our mindset about creation because it reminds us that words, whether spoken or sung, can be constructive or destructive. It's as if each phrase carries a fragment of the original sound, and how we use that fragment defines the impact we will have on the world around us. Some scholars of sacred language argue that the Hebrew alphabet itself was designed to represent specific sound frequencies. In this sense, each letter is more than a graphic symbol. It is a point of sound that, when combined with others, forms combinations capable of resonating with different aspects of reality. This would explain why certain ancient texts were chanted and not simply read. Silent reading does not release the energy contained in vocalized sound. This understanding even changes the way we view prayer. It's not just a spiritual dialogue, but a practice that, when done consciously, aligns human beings with the vibration that sustains the universe. It's as if each prayer were a small recreation of Genesis, repeating on a human scale the act that started it all. Comment here. I believe in the power of sound. What if the echo of Genesis wasn't just a distant memory, a poetic residue of a cosmic event? What if, in fact, it were a living code, still in transmission, traversing eras and dimensions, waiting for someone with the right sensitivity to perceive and decipher it? This possibility completely changes the way we view not only creation, but the very fabric of reality. If true, it means we are immersed in a constant message, a continuous flow of divine information, shaping not only what is visible, but also what we think, feel, and choose. This perspective transforms the echo of Genesis into something far more active and intentional than we imagine. It wouldn't just be a sound in the physical sense, but a vibrational field carrying instructions, perhaps even memories, from the exact moment everything began. Consider the impact. It wouldn't just be the story of creation being preserved, but the creative force itself being re-emitted, as if the universe were continually reminding itself of who it is. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because if this transmission exists, what prevents it from being perceived by everyone? Perhaps the secret lies in the noise, in the excess of sounds, images, and stimuli that surround us daily and prevent us from capturing something more subtle. It's as if the modern world has created a curtain of interference, and only those who learn to silence themselves within can hear it. The ancients seem to know this. That's why they cultivated rituals of silence, specific chants, and sacred words, not only as an expression of faith, but as true instruments for adjusting perception. It was a preparation to align the mind and spirit to the right frequency, so that, at the right moment, they could capture messages that were not on the ordinary plane of human communication. This is a revelation that profoundly affects our mindset. The echo is not just an inheritance, but an invitation. It continually calls us back to the source, to remember what was in beginning, even before the light. And if we understand this, perhaps we can consciously participate in this eternal dialogue, realizing that we are not only part creation, but also collaborators in the creative act. Comment here. I want to decipher this code. If you made it this far, it's because this journey spoke directly to you. So, before we move on to the next stage, subscribe to the channel to continue exploring these mysteries and revelations that we rarely encounter. And leave a comment saying, I'm with you until the end, just so I know you were present in every detail of this conversation. If this content touched you in any way, please leave a like. It's what helps this message reach more people who, like you, are looking for answers that surface-level answers don't offer. And now, there's a video right here that perfectly complements what we talk about today. Click and stay with me there, because the story is far from over.